Sziasztok! The Hungarian Heritage Podcast is back for Season 3, and we are Hungarian Heritage Stronger Than Ever. For those of you who have been here a while, welcome back, and thanks so much for sticking around. And for those of you who are new to the podcast, welcome! I'm so happy that you're joining us. My name is Christine, and I'm the host here at the Hungarian Heritage Podcast. During Season 3, I will continue to bring you guests and topics that celebrate Hungarian culture, people, and food. And of course, we will feature all of the cool things that Hungarians are doing around the world. Together, we will discover new things and review things that you may already know. And most of all, we will have a lot of fun along the way. One episode at a time, we will build those bridges between Hungarians who live in Hungary to those who live in other parts of the world. Not to mention the bridges we will build between the generations. So, if you're looking to make that first connection to your Hungarian heritage, or you're looking to strengthen your connection, then you found the right place. Join me, and together we will connect your modern lives to your Hungarian heritage by expanding this Hungarian heritage community and making the circles of Hungarians around us Hungarian heritage strong. In this episode of the Hungarian Heritage Podcast, I am thrilled to announce another exciting co-host collaboration. As many of you know, Season 3 has featured some co-host episodes. All of them began with an episode recording, followed by a blossoming friendship that led to new collaborative ideas. So for those of you who have been listening to the podcast for a while, it will come as no surprise that my next co-host is Ilka Kocsis, author of Ilka's Kitchen Stories, Balassi Summer Program participant, and most importantly, my friend. Together, Ilka and I will be celebrating Australians with Hungarian heritage. And in this first episode of our Australian series, we will be featuring Peter Sacket from the Hungarian folk dance group Keszkenő. Listen closely and you'll hear the strength of Hungarian heritage in every step of this folk dance group. Join me in welcoming back to the Hungarian Heritage Podcast, Ilka Kocsis. For those of you who are just joining us at the Hungarian Heritage Podcast, Ilka has been my guest 2 times here. And the first time she was here to tell us all about her Hungarian cookbook memoir, and I'll let her tell you about that. And then again, she was here to tell us all about the Balassi summer program that she participated in Budapest. Today, I have the distinct honor to welcome Ilka back as my co-host for this new series of episodes where we celebrate Hungarian heritage in Australia. Ilka, thank you so much for joining me here on the Hungarian Heritage Podcast. I'm so excited that you're my co-host here today. If you could remind everybody and tell us a little bit about your cookbook memoir and the Balassi program, and then I'm going to let you introduce our guest today.
Thank you so much for having me again, Christine. I love our collaborations and I am so honoured that you've asked me to co-host with you. And the guest we have today was the first person I could think of who I would really want to celebrate the Hungarian dance culture with. He's been an inspiration to me over the last few years and a close friend now as well. Yes, so I wrote a book, cookbook memoir called Ilka's Kitchen, Stories and Recipes from My Hungarian Heritage. And it basically happened during COVID and I'd always wanted to write. And it morphed into this beautiful cookbook memoir. So it begins with sort of telling my family story and then interspersed in the book are travel stories back to Hungary and all the kind of recipes that I have taught myself over the years. My Hungarian parents didn't actually teach me how to cook Hungarian food, but I clearly do have a passion for it, and the book has actually turned out to be really good, and people have enjoyed cooking recipes from it. And then I was then that successful after selling copies to family and friends, and then across Australia and to the US and Canada, and even to some bookstores in Budapest. I then decided to do a second edition, which included a couple of new recipes, and a chapter on the Balassi summer school scholarship that I actually won because of my book. And so I write about my experiences during the scholarship, and it was an experience I will never forget. And I'm hoping that people who read that section of the book or the whole book will be inspired to follow the same path and maybe apply for the program down the track. Yeah, that's about it. And our guest today is Peter Sacket. He's the principal dance teacher for Keszkenő Hungarian folk dance group in Perth. And I will just mention a little something. In the beginning of my book, in the soup section, I actually talk about my experiences learning to dance with Peter's group, but I tie it into a couple of traditional recipes like the bablavesh and the bottle dance to do with food and culture. So I actually do tie in learning to dance through Keszkenő and my book. So it actually Keszkenő does actually feature in my book at some point as well. So Peter, welcome. It's great to have you here.
Thanks very much, Ilka. It's lovely to be here today.
Welcome, Peter. Thank you so much for joining us here on the podcast today to talk about your Hungarian heritage and your love for Hungarian folk dance and your involvement in that, because it is really such a core piece of connecting to your Hungarian heritage. But before we dance our way into that part of the topic that we're going to talk about, it is a tradition that we ask our guests a little bit about their Hungarian heritage, because everyone's Hungarian heritage is a little bit different. You know, some people are born in Hungary or born in other places. So give us a little bit about your Hungarian heritage. Tell us about that.
No problem at all. And I find it very interesting that I'm sitting here with Ilka, because for me, the Hungarian heritage, I suppose, spans three real key ingredients, and that's folk music, folk dance, and certainly Hungarian cooking. And they're the three things that I find really synonymous with my Hungarian background.
Yeah.
My background is, I suppose it's a fairly distant Hungarian heritage because my father is English.
Mm-hmm.
I was born here in Australia, and in fact, my mother was born here in Australia. My heritage dates back to when my grandparents immigrated to Australia in 1949. In fact, they met on the boat. So as you can imagine, life was pretty tough in Europe, Central Europe, back in the late 40s after the war. And so my grandfather lost both his parents in the war. And so there was really just him and his sister, and he decided to come out to Australia on his own. Yet my grandmother, she came out with her entire family. She was 18 at the time.
Wow.
She had a younger brother and a younger sister, and her parents, as a family of five, they all came out, and they all met on the boat. 2 years after they arrived in Australia, they married, and naturally over time they had 3 children, and then 8 grandchildren were born from that. And I'm the oldest of those 8 grandchildren. So it was back in the 60s that my grandfather was one of 3 or 4 families that decided they wanted to, I suppose, keep alive their Hungarian background.
Yeah.
And those families all pulled together and they invested in a property that was fairly close to the city at the time. And the Hungarian Association of WA still owns that property. And it was out of there that many different Hungarian cultural groups actually, I suppose, eventuated and evolved. And so it goes back a fair while. As a child, I didn't speak Hungarian, being we were an English-speaking household, yet I was always involved in a number of different Hungarian events and obviously cultures. And while I was able to see my grandparents, and obviously their Hungarian was much better than their English, there was also my great-grandparents on my grandmother's side, and they generally spoke mainly Hungarian. So I wasn't able to speak too much with them. I do remember visiting them, and I would get little smarties and lollies, and as many as I could count. If I could count up to 10, then I got 10 of them as a young child. So I suppose that was my introduction to the Hungarian language.
That was good motivation, right? Candy always works as a kid.
Absolutely.
So a quick question. So most of your Hungarian heritage family, all chose to move to Australia. Like in 1949, I know that was post-war, but it wasn't like a big political push at that time, was it? So correct me if I'm wrong, if there was a political push at the time. How did they choose Australia? Did you ever ask your family?
I think it was just by chance, really. I don't think it was a choice back in those days. I could be corrected there. They didn't like to talk about it too much, but they certainly were in a refugee camp for some time over there before, and then the opportunity came to come to Australia. And at the time, I don't think they really knew much about the country. They just knew there were lots of people coming out, and they thought, hey, let's jump on that bandwagon and see what sort of life we can create over there. And so it certainly worked out for them.
Yeah, it certainly did. And now I just wanted to point out, you mentioned WA, which is how you refer to Western Australia. So that's the region of Australia for those listening. That is what WA stands for. So I've spoken about this actually many times with different people. It's just so amazing how such a small country of Hungary is so, like, the people that have spread far and wide in the diaspora have such a pride that your family even, like, you know, gathered together with other families to create this wonderful association of different types of Hungarian things as folk dance, and I imagine a lot of other things that happen, music and in the area. Like there's still that heritage pride for the homeland, so which is pretty interesting. So your story is similar, but yet it has its own interesting parts to it, just like everybody that comes on the podcast. I feel like it's definitely a nice connection to know that, you know, you have all of this pride in your Hungarian heritage. So thank you for sharing that with us. So tell us a little bit about, how did you get involved? Were you involved in other traditional things growing up, other than just, you know, going to your grandparents' house and counting to 10? Like, what are some of the things that you were involved in as a Hungarian when you were a kid?
There were lots of different, I suppose, groups within the Hungarian Association, so different communities. One that my mother was involved with was the Hungarian dance group, Keszkenő. That group started in 1967.
Wow.
So we're coming up on 60 years now, which is quite interesting. Got some interesting plans for celebrations in a couple of years' time.
That's exciting.
She actually started dancing with that group when she was 14 years old. And amazingly enough, because she had a ballet background, she actually started teaching that group when she was 16 years old. So you go back all that way.
Yeah.
It's a long time ago. Now, as a child, I wasn't really involved in the dancing, but my mother was. However, like many I suppose, children from Hungarian parents, we got sent off to Hungarian Scouts. And that organisation was actually ran by my grandfather when I was a child.
You couldn't escape, essentially. You couldn't escape. Your whole family's involved.
We're involved. That's it. So every Saturday we were off there, and I suppose we're exposed to Hungarian culture and language and different activities that were involved in that. And I still have very fond memories of those times. Like a number of, I suppose, community groups. Eventually that got a bit smaller over time, and unfortunately it dwindled away and no longer existed from about the early to mid-90s. It probably stopped. And it was about that time where there was some connection with the heritage. It certainly wasn't as strong as what it is now. But a lot of the people that I knew from Scouts, they were now involved in the Hungarian dance group Keszkenő. And so as Scouts sort of no longer existed, it became natural that, you know what, a lot of the friendships that I've got, they're over dancing, so I think I'll try that. And I started doing that as a 14-year-old. And as a 14-year-old boy in secondary school, it's sort of not cool to go and join Hungarian folk dancing, I suppose. More so you're going off and you're playing footy or basketball or whatever it is you're doing. But while I was still doing the footy and the basketball, there was also this cultural side of me that got involved with that. So I got involved at the age of 14, and I have been doing it ever since. Not to give away my age, but I think that's now 32 years. So it's been a while. I didn't actually go to Hungary and visit as a child. My first trip to Hungary was when I was 25 years old. And so at that stage, knowing that I was going, I did do a few Hungarian lessons in the year or two before I went to try to learn something. But in hindsight, when I got there, I didn't know a lot. So a few words here and there, important sentences like how to order a beer at a pub or that type of stuff. That were important things to
Very
really
important.
learn.
Absolutely.
But gradually over the year, I was able to pick up a lot more language and certainly was able to continue that coming back. While I certainly don't speak perfectly now, hopefully I know enough to get by in a conversation, which is good.
You speak very, very good Hungarian, Peter.
Thanks, Ilka.
Well, that's great. It sounds like you were pretty involved, even though some may think that, well, you were involved because like your parents were there and grandparents were involved. But, to join dance as a 14-year-old young man, that really shows that you had an interest in connecting to your heritage, even though you may or may not have told your buddies, what you were doing at first. But for those of you who don't know what Hungarian dance maybe looks like, the men's parts and the young men's parts, it's very manly, a lot of boot slapping, and it's definitely a workout. So it seems like you were, very much so. That's pretty great that you had a lot of exposure growing up.
Yeah, Peter, this is something that you have a lot of knowledge about, and that's the type of dances that are taught. And I know your mum, over the years, I've heard Marika say that she, researched dance styles in Hungary and then brought them to Australia. What can you tell us about that, and how much involvement have you had in that area?
I suppose the thing I love about Hungarian dancing in Australia, and I suppose worldwide when you think about it, is the community that you form. You all speak that common language, and that is dance and music. We regularly get together, whether it be yearly or every couple of years, that as a whole community, an Australian-wide community, and whether it be at a találkozó, which is a convention of which dance and music is a strong part of that, or whether it just be at a tábor, which is a camp where we might have teachers from Hungary and musicians from Hungary and get together. So we have them fairly regularly. Funny enough, I've actually just arrived back from this amazing tábor and camp learning experience.
Wow.
Just from Sydney. It was a wonderful experience there. I'm sure I'll talk about that a little bit more later. It's through those events that we're able to, I suppose, get really authentic teaching and exposure to the particular dance styles. And then we're able to take that back to our own groups and, I suppose, evolve in that and keep that alive. I've been to Hungary. I spent the year over there in 2004. I naturally brought a lot of information back, and so the group relied on that for a long period of time. And I've also been back probably about 4 or 5 times since, regularly attending various camps over there. And so I suppose through that, you get exposed to a lot of different things. The Hungarian government has the Kocsis Csomasándor program, where they send out sponsors to come and help Hungarian communities, and we've been very fortunate to secure the services of a number of young dancers and dance teachers that have been able to come to Perth. So naturally, through them, we're able to really learn and preserve that knowledge as well. And we've also been really fortunate that a few other people over the years have been able to come and emigrate to Australia and Perth, and they've had wonderful dance backgrounds as well, and so we've been able to draw on that. So I suppose it's from a variety of different avenues that we've been able to learn and preserve and really develop the various different dance styles and music styles that we now have in our repertoire today as a dance group.
That's great.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Peter. And how often do you perform? When do you hold performances? As
a group, we get invited to perform at various private functions, public functions, festivals, multicultural events, or Hungarian commemorations or events and things like that. At the moment, we probably perform at about 6 to 8 times a year. So it's not a huge number. We're an amateur group where everyone is a volunteer and they've all got their own families and full-time jobs, etc. So doing a performance every couple of months is probably about right, I feel. Sometimes they're bunched up and you might have 2 or 3 in the space of about a couple of weeks, but generally they're fairly well spread out throughout the year. There was a time where we were doing many more, 12, 15. I think one year we even did 18 performances. And when you're talking about over the course of 12 months, that's quite taxing on families and individuals and things like that. So that was a number of years ago now, and we made a conscious decision to not take on that many performances. So I think we've got the balance about right now. But certainly over the years, and I suppose the last 20, 25 years, the Táncház movement, which started in Hungary, probably really blossomed in the 80s and 90s. That really reached Australia in the early 2000s, and so we're now able to balance that I suppose performing aspect, which for a number of dancers that's really important, particularly young dancers. They like dressing in their costumes and getting on stage and showing what they've got, and balancing that with the Táncház or dance house movement, which is to live music, and you've got I suppose a social dance aspect to it, which is a really, really fun experience as well.
Right. The Táncház movement, it's also just getting together with people. So at any type of Hungarian dinner that, that's happening at like your association in the area, you could turn into a Táncház, if the right music is playing,
Absolutely.
right? Which is pretty great. Which essentially
Absolutely.
that's how it's supposed to be, right? It's just the getting together and dancing with each other.
I remember one particular event. I say recently, but it was sometime last year. It was a Hungarian Táncház, a dinner that was actually happening here in Perth, and there was the local Hungarian band that was playing, and it was more so for an older generation, but we were invited to perform, and away we went. So they were playing that music, and it sort of dwindled out, and eventually by about midnight, that band had stopped, and cleanup had started to occur around the place, and all of a sudden the dancers that were still around. Okay, we didn't have the live music there at the time, but on came the music, and let's just say the dancing and the singing and the party continued for some time after.
Yeah, I think that's what it's all about. At least that's what I've heard, because I'm not involved in, Hungarian folk dancing, but I was speaking with someone else in an episode 2 seasons ago, and they were really telling us about, the origins of the Táncház and how it varies from village to village, and how sometimes it's spontaneous. And, you might not even be dancing the same dances. It's just the feeling and the music and being together.
I found it very infectious when I first joined the dance group. I was like, I wish I had been doing this my whole life. Unfortunately for me, I left it a little bit too late, but I had a little glimmer of a go, didn't I, Peter? Just a little go.
Absolutely. And
well,
the most
still
important thing is you had fun with it.
Oh, yeah, it was.
And that's how the two of you met, right? Isn't that how the two of you met? Isn't the dance? So someone tell us about that. One of you, jump in there.
Well, I was actually studying Hungarian with a lovely girl called Jessica, who was a student at the school that I was teaching at, and she kept pressuring me to give it a go every time we were in a Hungarian lesson together. Yeah. I went, no, I'm too old. I've never been able to dance. My daughter's the dancer. And my cousin in Hungary, he's in the performing arts, but it skipped me completely. No. And then then somehow I got there one day and instantly fell in love with the music, Peter's charisma, his passion for Hungarian folk dancing was so infectious that I didn't care how bad I was just going to be there. And it happened to be a year where there were quite a lot of other beginner dancers as well. So that was fortunate and it comes in waves, doesn't it, Peter? There's sort of new people come along and then they drop out, and it sort of fluctuates. But the couple of years that I was doing it, there were quite a lot of newbies, and I just loved every minute of it. And I had health issues at the time as well. I had dodgy hips, and I still managed to give it a go. But yeah, that's how we met. So, and since then we've been friends ever since. I often see Peter at we have once a month what's called a Hungarian Happy Evening, and it's a big dinner event where I volunteer my cooking skills and make a dish for the community, and we serve it. And then Peter sometimes will be there as a guest with his family, or sometimes you even play in your band. So Peter is actually in a little band called Hot Paprika.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, so he's very multi-talented. So he plays instruments as well. What do you play again, Peter? Is it the double bass? And
correct, yeah, double bass.
Yeah. Yeah. So we get to see each other quite often at lots of different events. And his mum has been a great mentor to me. She's a gorgeous lady and also very passionate about her Hungarian roots. So it's a very great, Hungarian community. I'm really proud to be part of it. But it all started with learning a bit of Hungarian, then joining the dance group, and then it's just evolved into me being a lot more involved than I thought I ever would be, ever hoped or imagined I could be. So I'm just so grateful for that.
And I feel like you and I have spoken about that as well. You don't really know where an inspiration is going to come from or the motivation to do something, because both of us are in the same age range. And, we've connected a little bit more deeper to our Hungarian heritage a little bit later in life. And, we took a chance with something, and then that little snowball started to roll down the hill, and here we are doing all of our things, collaborating on things. But it seems like your community, back to you and Peter, your community has a lot of pride for their Hungarian heritage, even just like over the decades with this dance group. And then the fact that once a month you still have these happy Hungarian evenings. Is that what you called them? So, and between the dance, the food, and the music, you've got all of the three basic things covered. So one important question now, I know that costumes are very important because the costumes represent in Hungarian folk dance, regions of Hungary. Now tell us a little bit about the costumes that your dance group uses.
Oh, no. I mean, Ilka's mentioned my mother a couple of times, and geez, if she was sitting here, the podcast would go for about 24 hours because she could talk about them all day.
I love that.
Our group was very fortunate to have its founder, as her name was Borka Atkinson. She married an Australian person, but she was a seamstress for a ballet company over in Hungary before she emigrated out to Australia. Okay. And she actually said, I want to make Hungarian, I can say it in her accent, I want to make Hungarian costumes. Okay, so she wanted to sew them, and so that's why she started the dance group back in 1967. She didn't know how to dance, and she actually taught a bunch of girls their first dance out of a book. And I suppose after that initial period of a couple of years, that's why she enlisted my mother, who was only 16, to start teaching the group, because she at least had a dancing background.
So basically the costumes came first, essentially.
The costumes were the idea to come first, and she was an amazing seamstress. And so she hand sewed all of costumes, so many different regions. And whenever we went to the conventions that I spoke to about earlier, we always got really positive comments on the costumes that we have, because it wasn't, back in those days, it wasn't about actually buying in costumes for our group. She handmade all of them. And naturally, some of these costumes have really intricate embroidery and things like that. So naturally, there would be workshops, mothers of dancers, etc. They would be helping to actually make these costumes as well. So the wardrobe that we've got is actually really, really extensive. Borka passed away in 1993. Amazingly enough, it was the group was scheduled to do a concert, which ended up being only about a month after she passed, and it ended up being a tribute concert. And it was that concert that I saw, and I'd seen the group perform plenty of times, but it was that concert that inspired me to join. So I actually joined only a couple of months after Borka passed, and naturally her and my mother were very close, having worked very closely together in teaching the group and also doing the costumes. And so that continued. That Mum kept teaching the group up until probably about maybe about 2005. I started teaching in about 2000, and then I really took over it with my wife when I got back from Hungary, because of all the knowledge that I'd gained over that trip. So I suppose since 93, we've certainly improved our costume wardrobe as well. We have enlisted other people to make certain regions that we didn't already have access to within our repertoire. And some costumes we've been able to buy in as well since then. But yeah, so
that's pretty amazing. You've heard that expression, build it and they will come. So I feel like that's what she did. She made the costumes, and it started from that, which we were just talking about. Like, what what is the inspiration for, appreciating your Hungarian heritage? And that was her contribution, even though she didn't know how to be a folk dancer. And like, look what became of that, like all of those beautiful costumes and, people dancing and teaching and it just developing into, you said you joined when you were 14, right? So that was a pretty important moment when you saw that, tribute performance, I imagine. So some of her costumes, I imagine, are probably older now. They're like museum piece quality, I'm sure. Are there any costumes that your group doesn't use anymore because of just the age and you want to preserve them?
Funny enough, we have these conversations regularly because there are some regions within our wardrobe
Yeah.
that we haven't used for, well, not even in my time dancing, so not for over 30 years.
Wow.
And because we've actually just moved our costumes from one location to another in the last 12 months. And so as we're going through that, there are conversations as to, what are we going to do with these costumes where we're not using them anymore, because we don't want them to just sit there until they disintegrate. We actually see if there's a group out there that wants to actually purchase some of these as a whole set, I suppose. And do we preserve some of them in a museum? I suppose if we ever get a Hungarian community, I suppose, cultural centre big enough and it's big enough to have a little museum in it, then we can put a few costumes in there. All these things are being talked about as to what we do, but at the moment we're very fortunate. And these costumes have been cared for I haven't done the calculations yet, but probably while Borka was the one that made the costumes and cared for them, she was very well assisted back in, I think it's the 80s, I could be corrected there, by a lady named Ingrid Vida. Okay. Ingrid wasn't Hungarian herself. She actually had some Russian background. However, she married a Hungarian man, one of those other families that I suppose back in the 60s together to come in, and their family is still heavily involved as well. And so Ingrid cared for these costumes, helped Borka in the 80s. Obviously, when Borka passed, she took over that. And she has only just stepped down last year. Wow. And she's into her 80s now as our costume mistress. So she tended for those costumes every year, and we were so fortunate because she not only cared for the costumes, she would actually prepare every single performance that we did. And remember, some years they were 17, 18 performances. She would prepare those costumes, she would launder them, she would iron them, she would bring, basically the dancers turned up and they were they just had to turn up, and then they were able to just put those costumes on at the end of the performance. They could just hang them up and they would be taken away by Ingrid, and she would launder them again and get them prepared for the next particular performance. So we were so fortunate to have her service for, really, when you think about it, it's near on 40 years that she did that job for. And we were so blessed to have her there. We said that we just recently moved the costumes, so they were moved from Ingrid and her husband Andrew's place. Okay, they were moved from there last year, and we've recently built a new storage facility, funny enough, at my mother's house. And so when you think about it, she started teaching that group when she was 16 years old. She is now the wardrobe mistress of our dance group, and she is now caring for those costumes. And naturally, she had such a strong bond with Borka for many, many years. I think it's really fitting that she's now the one to care for these costumes in the coming years.
Absolutely. I feel like she definitely was like next in line to inherit this job as the wardrobe mistress. That's beautiful.
I think when you think about the work that goes into actually maintaining those costumes, I don't think it's a very sought after position, but at the same time, it's when you think about that. But no, she absolutely adores and has such a passion for those costumes, and already she's naturally caring for them very, very well.
That's great. And it's kind of keeping it in like the community as well. So you definitely have to start teaching some of the younger generation, or your mom has to start teaching some of the younger generation how to do that, because eventually she'll need assistance.
Amazingly enough, that's one of her. That's the way she's doing it. She's doing it a little bit differently to what Ingrid did. However, certainly the younger dancers are getting a lot of hands-on experience. Because I think one of the things my mother said when she took it on, she goes, "I'm not ironing all those costumes for everyone." She goes, "Everyone can iron their own."
Oh boy! Hopefully they have good ironing skills. Otherwise, your mother won't be happy with their workmanship. So.
my daughter is two of my children are involved in the dance group. My daughter's 11 years old, and she's certainly been performing with the senior group for the last couple of years. And watching her only a couple of months ago prepare for a performance which happened to have one of those really big petticoats with have like about 20 layers in it.
Yeah.
Watching her sit in front of that TV, iron that petticoat at 11 years old, she's learning how to iron, that's for sure.
It's a very important skill. Seriously, you have to know how to iron, just so at least you don't go to work or school with wrinkly clothes. So definitely ironing a Hungarian folk skirt is a good way to learn to iron. A lot of pleats in there, right? I'm sure.
Absolutely.
So your kids are also involved in the Hungarian folk dancing. How about, you mentioned your wife too. Is she also involved in the Hungarian folk dancing?
Yes, it's an interesting background. I got married in 2006. And my wife was also a Hungarian background, but born in Australia, born in the eastern states.
Okay.
And she was probably more I'm quite passionate about my Hungarian dance and music, but she was at next level.
Wow.
Okay, in terms of how she was involved. So it was a pretty good union. And we were together and married for about 10 years and taught the group here. Unfortunately, she got quite ill and cancer took her life about 9 years ago now. But it was certainly something that was very much part of our life, and naturally our three kids, they were involved with that because it was the radio wasn't playing or Spotify wasn't playing. It was Hungarian folk music through the house for all of that time. So
it's also a great way to not only like honor your heritage, but just honor their mom and still feel connected. Which
absolutely,
absolutely.
Interestingly enough, our group has it's quite varied in its ages. The youngest in our senior group is my daughter. She's nearly 12 now, and then we've got a lot of people in their 20s, and then a number in their 30s, and it continues to go up. Our oldest dancer is actually my mother's husband, and he turns 80 this year.
Oh,
and so
wow.
So while he doesn't dance nearly as vigorously as he used to, because he did used to dance at a very high level in Hungary when he was there, and he's been out in Australia now for many, many years. But he's always been involved, first in Adelaide when he lived there, he taught the group there, and naturally when he met my mother and came over here. But he's been in Perth now since about 1997, I think he moved over. And so you've got a very wide range of dancers that are actually involved in our group. And from a family perspective, it's an interesting story that when our oldest was born, and so we're talking 2009 here, me and Jules, we came home and we've got this newborn sitting in our hands, and we're at home going, okay, what do we do now? Because they don't do much at that age.
Right.
And we thought, well, guess what? There's dance practice tonight. Let's go. So off we went. With a 5-day-old child to dance practice, and funny enough, band practice as well was before it. So we had music and then we had dancing, and we just continued that right the way throughout. So when the children was 2 children, 3 children, I think they've been basically every week their entire life. And the kids got involved in the junior group when they were quite younger. Julie taught them for a little while. After she passed, I taught them for a little while, and now we've got other people that are teaching them. But while my son, he got to a point that says, I don't want to do this anymore. And I went, that's fine. You don't have to do that. But guess what? As a family, we're still going. So he was outside climbing the trees and playing on the swings and doing whatever they're doing. And I think he got to the age where, you know what? I think I want to get back into it. So that's now been a couple of years. And I must say, at this recent camp we were just at, to watch them be involved in the tanzas and to see them the way that they learned and things like that, I certainly had a few proud father moments in that, in terms of that. And we talk about family. I have been very fortunate that another partner has come into my life. She's not Hungarian background. She's a Polish background. And so we got married only a couple of years ago now. And it's really, she was involved in folk dancing for the Polish community. Since we've been together, she has now been involved in the Hungarian community and certainly embracing that as well. And so as a family, we're still really heavily involved in that particular part of our Hungarian heritage.
Ellie's a very good Hungarian folk dancer too. So the Polish transition to Hungarian was seamless in my eyes. Yeah. Yeah, they're an amazing dance
Absolutely.
couple. They're beautiful together.
I love
No
that
doubt.
your whole family is involved. Even though the kids, they go through their stages, we've all had kids at that age. And, it's nice that even though your oldest son, I think you said, right? Your oldest son decided to take a little bit of a break. Sometimes that's okay. Take a little bit of a break, and then they realize that they really want to be a part of the group. And that's lovely to see that he needed a little time away, and then now he's back with the group and learning more and just staying connected. And that's fantastic that your kids also have that with each other and you.
Mm.
And, and now also with, your new partner. Folk dancing really it's been a part of their entire lives from, I'm sure, even like when they were in the womb, you guys were folk dancing. So I feel so envious in like a positive way that you have that connection with the folk dancing, because it is such a big part of staying connected to your Hungarian heritage, and you have that one really strong element. Of course, you're also in a band, so that's fantastic too, but just the folk dancing is really such a strong connection.
It's interesting you say how it's part of them before they were even born. I mean, different things happen, when you're going through those really late stages of pregnancy. And I remember we were actually in the hospital, and it's like, how do you get this process of labour moving? Well, we were doing Magyar Polatka in the ward, and so there was lots of dancing actually happening in there.
Yeah, even through birth, which is amazing, right?
How important is it to you, Peter, to keep the traditions alive within the WA Hungarian diaspora? What are your plans for 2025, for example?
Oh, there's lots of plans happening at the moment. I mean, there was a lot of work going into, I suppose, the build-up of attending this most recent camp. Probably not as much work for us as what it was for the Sydney group, who actually put that camp on. So the Kengulgru group over in Sydney.
That event called the Kalatashegi Tabor.
That was the Kalatashegi Tabor. The Sydney group, Kengulgru, they organised for 3 musicians, really authentic musicians that came out of Kalatasheg, Churos Bonda. So we were able to learn, the musicians around the country were really able to learn the really authentic way of how to play Kalatasheg. And even the experienced musicians in Australia go, wow, that's just such a different feel, they're different runs, they're different notes, etc. So there's going to be a real evolution in terms of the way that we play that particular region here in Australia now, and the music side of things. It was just so really heartwarming, and it really moved your soul as you listened to the way that they particularly played this music. Funny enough, I first came into contact with this band 14 years ago when our group Keszkenő went on a learning tour of Hungary and Transylvania, and they were one of the bands that played at a private function that was organised for us in Kolozsvár. And so we didn't know this band before them, and we didn't really keep much in contact afterwards. But it's interesting because the dance teacher that also came out, he was one of the local, I suppose, let's say, ratbag boys that sort of gate crashed our party that night and had a bit of a dance with some of our female dancers. And so we didn't realise that there would be this connection 14 years later. We were able to look up some of the old videos of that party and see a very young Zoli who sort of came in, and naturally we were able to reconnect with the musicians as well, which was really, really good. But there was probably about 100 people at this camp in Sydney to learn dances from Kalatasheg. Some people learnt the Magyar, and other people learnt the Roman, the Invertita, and the Sopora. So learning those particular dances from real authentic teachers that live in those villages was just so rewarding. And for some of us who have been to plenty of these camps before.
Where is that region you're talking about? Is it in Transylvania?
It is in Transylvania, so it's in Adde, and it's near where Kolozsvár is, or the English name is Cluj-Napoca, and so it's very close to there, and lots of rich heritage that comes from that particular place. So for those of us that have been to plenty of camps before, it was great to reconnect with friendships that we've actually made over the years. And for those people it was their first camp, I suppose they've started that journey, and they're all saying, when's the next one? When's the next one? Let's go again. So you asked what we're planning for in 2025. We've got some I say new dances that we want to learn. One of the areas we'd like to learn is Dialolfeld, and our Karchepesh, I suppose, sponsor that's out here at the moment. That's his specialty, so we'll be learning that from him. So I say it's a new dance. Well, it's a new dance for a lot of our dancers, but some of us more experienced people, we used to do that probably 15, 20, 25 years ago. And so it'll be good to rehash that one again. Naturally, we're going to work on the one that we've just learned at the camp. So we'll evolve on that one, as well as a number of other dances that we need to just, I suppose, spruik up in our repertoire. And we are planning for the end of this year to head over to Melbourne, where there's a Tolakos, also one of those conventions, which will involve a couple of performances, but will also include some learning. And so we're looking forward to that. And we are considering going to Hungary next year for maybe a summer camp or two. So there'll be a number of us dancers from our group heading over there. So again, to expand our knowledge. And we're really, I suppose, starting the process of planning what we're going to do for our 60th anniversary in 2027. And we'll be, I suppose, the next camp in Australia will be over in Perth. So we're starting the process of organising that now.
That's exciting. I have a few comments about all the things that you've just said. What I'm hearing, number one, is there are a lot of Hungarians in Australia, between Perth, your area where the both of you live, and you mentioned Sydney and Melbourne. It's great that you have all of those opportunities to get together with different groups and share dance styles, learn new things, especially at the camp. What a great experience. And it's also great too, because I feel like really with anything, you're never really done learning, right? Like there's always more to learn. So that's a fantastic opportunity. You're excited even as an adult. So how fantastic is it for the kids that they get to learn these things as well? And so my last question about some of the things or comments is that you mentioned that you have like the Kachape program that comes over. Do you have that every year that comes into your area? Okay, because that's similar in the US. We have young people that come over and basically focus mostly in the dance section, even though they do help out in other parts of the Hungarian community as well. And they teach new dances and et cetera. So that's pretty great that you also have those programs in Australia.
We've been pretty fortunate to have some really good people come in over the years. I think the program's been running for around about 12 years now. There were a couple of years break there during COVID, where everything sort of stopped. But we've certainly we've been pretty blessed to have dancers most years that have come here. Quite often, particularly after Yulchi passed, we needed a female teacher, so that was someone that we requested to really help us through that. And I suppose we've now got someone who's come over in 2020 that has a very strong dancing background, and she's become our female teacher within our group. She's absolutely fabulous for our community. And so for the last few years, we've actually requested a male dance teacher to come in, and it's been great to have someone who's probably a little bit more younger and certainly maybe got that energy to really inspire these younger people, because like you look at people like my son, and there's also a number of other young males that are in their, I suppose, late teens, 20s, etc., to have someone younger that they can connect to and not learning from a mid-40s someone has probably been really good for their motivation as well.
Sure, absolutely. Definitely a good role model.
Yeah, sorry, we have two boys here at the moment, though. One went back and he's come back again for a year. We did actually have our Karchepesh sponsor from last year was a male dance teacher. He loved it in Australia so much that he's actually here on a working visa at the moment.
Ooh,
so
we're pretty fortunate to have them both.
Very lucky, very lucky. So now, because in different regions of the US, different Kachape go to different regions, is that the same thing in Australia, where Sydney and Melbourne, they also have their designated Kachape?
They do.
Really
so
great.
I think There's a couple in Sydney. There's a couple in Melbourne. We've only got one in Perth.
Okay.
There have been years before that we've had two in Perth. They're generally not both dedicated to the dance group, generally just one, and one would be dedicated to something else, whether it be Scouts, whether it be the school or whatever it is that they're in. But it was interesting because when we were just at this camp in Sydney, but all the Kacipes from around Australia were actually able to be there. So I think there was about seven of them in total that were all there. And so it certainly enhanced the experience for everyone.
So it sounds like a lot of fun, and it seems like the kids are really gaining a lot of information from all of that. So now your dance group, which is called Keszkenő, how do you, most importantly, keep the younger kids interested or, wanting to dance? So, do you find that, you said it waned a little bit, even like your son took a break. What does your dance group do to continue to encourage people of all ages, from all the ages, from like the teens all the way to, was it your mother's husband you said? Or who was it that's 80?
Fritzy. He's actually now the honorary consul here in Perth, so he holds quite high status. How
do you keep them motivated? How do you? I mean, obviously, he's motivated because that's part of his whole life that he's been involved in. But how do you get people to continue to sign up? Especially in the younger ages, and continue going, especially, through the 20s and 30s, and, people's lives are continuing. And what is it that you guys do as a group to help that along?
And I suppose like any community group, whether it's a sporting organisation or a folk dance group or scouting, I think over the years that it goes through a bit of a cycle. It goes up and it's really strong, and then it sort of wanes a bit, and numbers are a bit smaller. And while I said my mum's still dancing, you think about it, she started dancing 2 years after the group started. Okay, wow. So and given that we're 2 years till we're 60, that's a long time.
Yeah.
So we've got some long stalwarts that have been there. The president of our group, I think he's been president for 30 years now. So he is still dancing. He's recently retired in his early 60s. So you've got people that have been around there for and naturally over the years, a lot of people come and go and they spend shorter amounts of time. But we've certainly got quite a stable organisation within our dance group. I suppose understanding that groups will go up and down. I suppose our philosophy here is really support our dancers and provide an experience that they want to be part of. That's something that's really, really key. And understanding that different people get involved for different reasons. Some of them want to perform, and that's why it's really important that we do take on performances and give them the opportunity to do that. Others want to learn it to be able to social dance at a tanzhaus or a dance house, and so making sure we're teaching that type of thing. Some people actually come just because it's a nice social experience and they want to get some fitness out of it. Because they find that more interesting than going to the gym. And so being able to cater for that's really, really good. As a group, we've always been really accepting of anyone that comes through, and we've had people of all sorts of different cultures that have come through, whether we're talking people, Greeks, whether we're talking Ukrainians, whether we're talking people from New Zealand. I can remember a number of different people. And at the moment, the connection we have with the Polish community here in Perth is really, really strong. They've also got a really, really strong folk organisation over there, and we've got a number of dancers that are actually part of the Polish group and also the Hungarian group. And I say there's Polish and Hungarians involved in both groups, and so we do a lot of collaborative sort of events with that. So I suppose really being welcoming, understanding what are the reasons that they want to get involved in this type of activity, and then if you can provide an experience that's exciting for them and they want to spend their time there, then they will continue to be involved. Where I suppose at the moment we're on one of those high peaks in terms of where our group is at the moment, which is really, really good. And naturally we'll try and keep that up there as long as we can. And I think for the next couple of years, we've got a few things planned that will keep it really strong, and then understand that there will come a time when, people will find other things to do. Obviously when people grow up and they get married and they have kids, that makes it a little bit difficult for some people. But being understanding of that and saying, sure, we're still here, come along if you can. You don't have to be consistent once a month, once every fortnight, whatever it is. And understanding, meeting them where they're at just helps them to come back. We have plenty of people that stay when they've got kids. okay, and they bring their kids and they're in the corner just like I was with my mum and just like my kids were with me.
Yeah.
And then others, they go away and they have kids and they might take a break for about 5 years, 10 years, and then they'll come back. So just understanding that and having events that people still remain connected even after they leave the group. When you have those events, they reconnect and they go, oh, hang on, maybe I will come back. And sometimes they come back and sometimes they don't, but that's fine.
Yeah, that's really great. I think, you said a few key words like being welcoming, which I think is so key when you're trying to maintain a heritage outside of the homeland. Being welcoming to all people that want to join, very key, because everybody's at different connection levels with their heritage, no matter, what heritage that is, and either also with their ability to speak or not speak Hungarian. Some people just want to feel connected. So the welcoming and the kindness, and you mentioned that as far as just, listen, if you need to take a break because you're having kids, that's great. Come back anytime. Like those are really important factors, I feel, in making sure that you're fostering like a welcoming community. So you could see why that you have a lot of people who are still connected, in your whole dance group, from young kid to senior citizen, like that they've maintained that connection, which is great.
Yeah. There's a few strategic things you need to do with that. I suppose lessons, because you've got non-Hungarian speaking people, that you can't just teach your lessons in Hungarian.
Right.
Yet at the same time, if you teach them solely in English, you'll get, I suppose, newer Hungarians that have come out there. They don't feel the connection to it. They feel this is just an Australian group. So you've got to balance the language that you're teaching as well.
Yeah.
We know that there will be dancers that will get older and they will leave for whatever reason. So we need younger dancers to come up. So actually really supporting a junior dance group is really, really essential to make sure you've continually got that. And so we've actually changed the way that we do our junior group, because over the years there's been a junior group, then there hasn't been one, then there is one, then there hasn't been one. At the moment, we've got a very good junior group, and we've strategically placed that to happen straight after Hungarian school on a Saturday. And so the parents can drop the kids off to Hungarian school and they'll go, excellent, we'll keep them there another hour. And so they're getting that exposure. Now, while it's on a different day to when our senior group happens, it's really important that we have occasions where we come together and connect so that they can actually see what can be if they stick with it. I suppose that's really, really important.
Happened here at the Harmony Day at the Polish Club, didn't it? You joined the junior group and the senior group. Was that the first time you've done that in a performance?
In this occasion, yes, because our junior group, I suppose, has really been rekindled over the last probably 18, 24 months. And when it restarted, there were a lot of really young kids there. We're talking 3 and 4 year olds. And so while they did lots of cute performances for things like Mother's Day and Mikolash and things like that, this was the first time where we actually, over the last couple of years, that we've been able to join the two groups together for a particular performance. We've certainly done that plenty of times over previous generations, but it's nice to have that connection. And it's actually getting a number of the parents of those children involved too, and they're coming along to the senior classes. So it's another way to form that connection, I suppose.
Definitely. Just one thing I did want to mention was that, Christine, you sort of said that we've got a lot of Hungarians in Australia. We do, but we don't. I don't think we're as huge as our diaspora is not as big as the US, for example. And in Perth too, we are actually quite a small Hungarian community. So I feel that the dance group is probably the most powerful part of our community, as in building the community. And that's exactly what has just described.
Well, I feel like there's always something that is like the glue that holds together the forward motion of maintaining a heritage. So it seems that your dance group is that glue right now.
And we are feeling that we're in a really good place with our group, the community that we have, the people involved. And while the numbers aren't huge to draw on, we've got about 20, 25 dancers at the moment that come into our group, and probably only about 15 of them have a Hungarian background when you think about that. But when we get together with other groups around Australia, and those groups have differing strengths and they go through those same cycles. So some of them would only have maybe 6 or 7 dancers at the moment, and others would be similar to us and have 20, 25. But when we get together at an experience like we just had in Sydney, I think it's look, there's only 100 people there. Okay, there's probably about 150 dancers around Australia, so not everyone could get there. But while those numbers aren't huge, I think the quality of those relationships and the bonds that you make, it's quality over quantity, I think, and the experience that everyone gets from that is just really, really good. And we're really, really well supportive of each other in terms of our groups right around Australia, which is great.
That's fantastic. I feel like you're hitting all of the buzzwords to sell how fantastic Hungarian folk dancing is in Australia, because just being welcoming and kind and just like open to new things. Like, I feel like, I know no one can see us speaking. You're only listening to us, but Peter, as you're speaking and telling us all about these things, you've had a smile on your face the entire time, as when you're speaking about the folk dancing and just like the history of it. So this is really such an amazing experience, and congratulations, because your dance group, I want to say it properly, Keszkenő?
Yeah, well done. You've got that pronunciation right.
I might not be able to speak very well, but I'm pretty good at pronouncing things, but I just wanted to make sure. So your dance group, Keszkenő, is celebrating its 60th anniversary in 2 years. So you've got a nice build up between now and then, and I'm sure that all of your dance groups are going to be putting together some lovely dances. I would love to touch base with you in 2027 and see how that goes, and hear about the camp that's going to come to Perth in the western area of Australia next summer. I believe you said that is right.
2 years' time. So
2 years' time. Okay, it's going to be a big 2027 for you guys.
We're not going to do it in we're not going to do it in the summer months of Perth, Australia. It's just too hot. Having a week of 40+ days and dancing up and down, but we'll find a good autumn day, I think.
Well, 2027 will definitely be a banner year for your dance group and your Hungarian communities, and I would love to reconnect at that time, if not sooner, if you have more things that you'd love to share with us. So I wanted to thank Ilka. Thank you so much for being my co-host today in this new series of celebrating Australian Hungarians and their heritage, and Peter Sacket from Keszkenő Hungarian Folk Dance Group. Thank you so much for being here today and telling us all about the history of your dance group, how it started from the costume lady, and it's maintained almost 60 years of success, and a pre-happy anniversary to your dance group. Thank you so much for being here today, and I look forward to speaking with both of you soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks so much. Thanks for joining me and my co-host, Ilka Kocsis, today on the first episode of our new series, Celebrating Australians with Hungarian Heritage. I hope you heard just how Hungarian heritage strong the Keszkenő Folk Dance Group and Peter Sacket are as they continue to foster the growth and love of traditional Hungarian folk dancing in Western Australia. If you are interested in contacting my co-host, Ilka, about her cookbook or her experience in the Balassi summer program, I will leave her information in the show notes. And if you're interested in contacting Peter Sacket from the Keszkenő Folk Dance Group, I will leave the dance group's contact information in the show notes as well. If you have feedback or questions about this episode, or you would like to connect with me at the podcast, you will also find that information in the show notes. If you've enjoyed this episode and you're interested in learning more about this Hungarian heritage community, please don't hesitate to reach out. I would love to hear from you. Our theme music is Hungarian Dance by Pony Music, used with special license from Envato Market. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, make sure you stay Hungarian heritage strong. Sziasztok!